That's all he wanted to do was just get drunk and hook up. And he was going through a divorce. And at that time, I was like just so vulnerable and just looking for love in all the wrong places. So I realized like all that stuff I felt so, ashamed about. I could use that for purpose and help other people. My passion is helping other people realize like no matter where you're at in life, like you can change. And it starts with like having this awakening to this awareness that your past is not you, even your present circumstances, you can change. Hi friends, I'm back. I've been working on something and I'm excited to tell you about at the end of first, I wanted to share kind of a personal story. It can motivate you and inspire you to make changes in your life and know that you can no matter what your past is. When I was 25, I was in health promotion and education. And at this time, I also, even though I was in that program and had just become a personal trainer, I was binging on food multiple times per day and throwing it up, and I just couldn't stop. I was drinking wine every day, getting home from work and just falling asleep on my couch, waking up in the middle of the night, even though I really, really wanted to stop. So anyways, I was looking for an internship at this time, and I go to this big corporation that has a corporate wellness, and I talk to the supervisor. He interviews me and everything. Later on, he texts me and, says, "Oh, it was nice to meet you." I was like, "Okay, yeah, nice to meet you too." He was a supervisor there. But the next day he texts me again and he ends up asking me out, and I was just like, okay, I guess that I'll go with him. And even though he was going to be a supervisor and he was a very religious sort of person who, they weren't supposed to like drink caffeine or, do the deed before marriage. That's all he wanted to do was just get drunk and hook up. And he was going through a divorce. And at that time, I was like just so vulnerable and just looking for love in all the wrong places sort of thing that I started, liking him and thought everything he was telling me about wanting to be with me was true. After a few weeks of dating, he said that he wanted me to come to Colorado with him to meet his brother, which was like made me really happy, but it was also kind of weird because his family was like this big religious family. And at the time I didn't believe like in God or anything at all. The day that we were supposed to go, he just totally ghosted me. And I just felt devastated. And throw that on top of the bulimia, the binging, the purging, not being able to stop drinking, not being able to change my life, even though I really, really, really wanted to. I knew there was something inside of me that was so much bigger, and I just felt like crap. And then it was like a week later, he contacts me again and invites me to his house. He's like, "Oh, my divorce is final." And he's like chugging a bottle of vodka. All he wants to do is hook up again. And I leave and I just feel so empty. And the next morning, I'm looking at the wall, wondering what the point of life is anymore. I had just gotten a job as a personal trainer, but I couldn't stop binging on food multiple times per day and throwing it up. I was drinking every day, had that failed relationship and just felt like crap. And I went riding four-wheelers with friends. I fell off of one, broke my back. The doctor said I should have been killed or paralyzed. And I was pretty much, I had a broken back, but I was pretty much fine. And that was the third time I had almost died like that in a few years. And I started thinking there has to be something more to life. All these material things, I've had achievements and looks and made money and all this. None of it's making me happy. The things that used to make me happy temporarily, like they're not anymore. The food's not working, the alcohol, it's not working anymore. And so I started seeking spirituality. I started meditating. It was really hard at first. I started doing yoga. I went to this church that wasn't really a religious church. They had meditation, yoga. They had gospel music, which I had never experienced before. And then I started reading. I was reading all these books. I was reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I suddenly had this spiritual awakening. So I awoke to this awareness that saw all these thoughts because I was trying to change my life, but I still had all these really shameful thoughts in my head all the time. Like, if only they knew what I did behind closed doors. If only they knew the stuff that happened when I was younger. Crime, rape, abortion, there's all this stuff when I was younger. If only they knew, like just all these thoughts. And I realized like those thoughts and emotions, they aren't me, but what they were doing was creating the same cycles in my life over and over and over again. I had that spiritual awakening and then I had a transformation. I learned about manifestation. I found purpose in my life. I realized like all that stuff I felt so, ashamed about, I could use that for purpose and help other people. And so I started a big boot camp business, and I, built it to 7 figures, but it really wasn't my passion, fitness. My passion is helping other people realize, like, no matter where you're at in life, like, you can change. And it starts with like having this awakening to this awareness that your past is not you, even your present circumstances, you can change. Now I've created a program where I'm going to help you, anyone who can relate, guide you through this program of spiritual awakening, transformation, and manifestation. It's actually pretty simple, but it's pretty difficult to implement. And so it's really helpful to have a mentor. It's not for everyone, but if you would like to be one of the first people for information, just comment "awaken" in the comments and I will send you information on it. And then also good news, when I did see that guy again after a couple months of having like a spiritual awakening, there was like 0 interest. Like, of course he wanted to hook up again. I'm like, no, thank you. I have much more self-esteem, and I have esteem from, God now and the universe. And so comment "awaken" if you'd like to be the first to learn more information about my new program.